Hello YouTube. This is BalorMage. We're back again with another budget build. This time, I decided I wanted to go into something cast on crit. That was all I knew going forward, was that I wanted to do something cast on crit. So, what we ended up with was a cast on crit Inquisitor with Reap and Cold Iron points and a Carcass Jack, in order to keep the price down and the cyclone radius high enough that it didn't feel trash. To really quickly demonstrate the play style, we will show some maps, we will show some bosses, but the idea is I am wearing the Stampede boots, so this is my speed all the time, which does make it not quite an A tier mapper because you can't really go any faster than this. You can Whirling Blades and you can Flame Dash around, and that's great. And I use Whirling Blades to get Fortify quite often, and that's great. But when we Cyclone, we don't slow down, and that's the only important part. So you can see whenever I hit mobs, there's a giant Reap that comes out. So you can see it comes out to about there. So as my Cyclone hits there, the Reap will hit all the way out the back there, which is quite a bit more range. The Carcass Jack is most of what helps with that. It does have only about 5k effective life and no dodge and no evasion. So it's not the tankiest, but it's still okay. I've managed to be farming tier 16 juiced maps with it, not delirium juiced maps, or at least not anything above 40%. It is just not quite tanky enough for that, but it has managed to kill Sirus 9, all the Guardians, all the Shaper Guardians, Shaper, Elder, all the Elder Guardians. I did not do a feared encounter on this one, and I wouldn't suggest it. It does only end up with about 5 million damage, which comparatively to my other builds is actually quite low, but most people are still pretty happy with 5 mil damage. This is the kind of build that I would suggest to play if you really like the cast on crit cyclone style gameplay. It is probably the worst of the budget builds I've done so far, but that doesn't make it bad. It's just that the other ones so far have been better. So it's still been decent though. So let's have a quick look at which ones. Let's have a quick look at how these all went. So we've got some bosses here. Shh, no one needs to hear from second to Baylor. All right. The damage is not the 20 million DPS that I've been doing in many of the other builds, but it is still quite reasonable and quite smooth to play. You can see you never have to stop moving. You get to just keep moving around. I don't quite get to kill Veritania before she goes up, but we do kill her quickly after she comes back down. So it's not bad, but it's also not the very best. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm calling it like pretty much B tier at everything. It's a really nice all-rounder build. It can do all of the things, but it's just not the highest clear speed or the highest boss damage or the best at anything. It's just sort of B tier all round. Still relatively decent. What I will mention is that we're only at around about the 14 to 15x investment on this one, which we could invest further. I have seen people with about 9 to 11 mil DPS, and the investment on that would probably be more like 45x, and that would definitely make your boss damage significantly better. You can see in this Hydra, again, I can't quite one-shot the Hydra before it phases out, but I have a very easy time dodging all of the Frogger style balls in the fight because Cyclone is just super smooth and you never have to stop attacking and you're always moving. So that is also very nice. And then we have some map clear, which is again not the best map clear in the world, but not bad either. So these are all like 90% plus quant maps with scarabs and sextants and tier 16s, and you know, like, it is as juiced as it can get. without having delirium orbs on. As you can see, it's just not the fastest, but it's also not too slow. It's at an okay speed. As I said, just an all-round B tier. The only thing it gets A tier for from me is just smoothness. Anything cyclone with enough area, which this is just barely enough area, I would not swap out the carcass jack for anything. It's really all the area scaling I've got. But anything with enough area on cyclone is always just one of the smoothest that you can get. As you can see, super packed boss room, everything's fine. I can still just walk in and kill them. But it's just not the highest, but it was still really fun to play. It was still very smooth. We're using the petrified blood low life shenanigans. So it does sometimes look, when you're mapping or killing bosses, it does sometimes look a little bit like Jesus take the wheel. But you don't usually die. It isn't the tankiest, so you will die sometimes, but you don't usually die. All right, a quick view of what we've got here and what is important. Stampede boots, not necessarily the most important. If you crafted really good boots, really good, like, you know, elusive tailwind movement speed boots, they would probably be better. I used them so I didn't have to worry about cyclone slowing me down, but it also means I can't use a quicksilver, which is a bit meh. If you lose the stampede boots, you will notice that you lose quite a bit of strength, which is a little bit upsetting, so I'd want to try and get a little bit more strength somewhere. Vulnerability on hit, shape as touch, incredibly useful. It just gives you the accuracy per int you want. The life per dex is not irrelevant. The mana per strength is not irrelevant. Increased energy shield per strength, also not irrelevant. It's quite nice as an all-round quite nice as an all-round pair of gloves. Deceptively good. Vulnerability on hit is only about 50c. Nothing special on our rings. Not even got a helm enchant on. Any helm enchant for reap would be good. The blood charges would be the best one for single target. But there wasn't one up, so I just got any Crown of the Inward Eye, and then when I ran my own Uber Lab, I just enchanted it with whatever it had. It's just an irrelevant enchant. We don't use corrupted femur. It is just an Astra Mantis and 2 cold iron points, and we're using Doriani's Invitation purely for the physical damage leached as life. It does have a little bit of damage on it and some decent resistance, but if you manage to get that physical leached as life elsewhere, you could replace the belt in a heartbeat. We're using that purely because we want the physical damage leached as life. The most expensive item in the entire build is the Watcher's Eye, and that is because it is double damage with pride and life gain on hit by vitality. Now, the double damage, that's important. The life gain on hit by vitality is nice, but you can also get life gain on hit from rings, and you could also just go without it, because we do already have leech and we do already have quite a bit of regen. So it was very nice. We managed to snipe one up for 4x. About 3 or 4 of these were showing up every day while I was playing it for 4x. But the ones that are there, to buy without whooping, are actually 8x instead, which would bring me from about a 14x budget to around an 18x budget. And to be honest, I'm not sure I'd pay 8x for it. The life gain on hit is very nice, but for the difference between just getting a pride double damage and a pride vitality one, I could have easily invested in a better ring to give me life gain on hit that way, and that would have been fine. And some life gain on hit does make me feel quite a bit tankier. The recovery on this build is insanely good. If you don't get one shot or killed within like half a second, you will very, very quickly return to full energy shield, full life, very, very quickly. But because we've only got just over 5k effective life, there are occasional one-shots. I did what might have been my absolute worst Sirus 9 fight I have ever done on this character, and it was not the character not handling it well, it was me being Pepega as it wasn't very good. But it's also the only Sirus 9 that I did on this one, so I do have a link to the clip of me doing the entirety of the Sirus 9. It took 5 portals. Please try and judge, if you watch that, please try and judge the build on, you know, how effective it is and how much damage it does, and not on Balor standing in stupid shit and getting hit by stuff he's not meant to. Try and judge the build and not the player. I am not fantastic, and I made a lot of mistakes in that one. The other thing that I will say is that if I just got a few more levels, somewhere around level 93 or 94, I could probably drop all of this and that area and go straight into a second cluster. And if I were to go into a second cluster, it would look almost exactly like this, except one of them would be, one of my mediums would be a channeling gain endurance charge node. There's a you gain endurance charges while channeling node, and I would absolutely grab that if I had enough. Once I leveled up enough to go into a second cluster setup, I would absolutely grab one of those, and then we would just go back to these regular ones for everything else. I would not put in another Surging Vitality. I very, very much like having one Surging Vitality on an Inquisitor that has this for the energy shield and life regeneration thing. I don't generally use small cluster jewels, and in most of my builds you won't find them. You would rather find good, you know, 3-stat jewels or something in those slots and just not using smalls. But specifically in an Inquisitor with the energy shield as life and the energy shield regen being copied from the life regen, I tend to enjoy having about usually just the one Surging Vitality. It feels pretty good. I don't mind it at all. Definitely personal options. You don't have to use that. Plenty of options for our second anoint. True Strike actually crit cap us, so we did that, but there's plenty of other things you could get. You could just not have that anoint if you're not using the Stampede boots. You would change the anoint to True Strike if you still need the crit, or you just leave True Strike off if you're getting more crit from Utmost Might, depending on where your values are. There's a lot that can be done with it. Overall, I'm done with it because it's just a little bit too slow for me personally to have a buttload of fun. Just that movement speed for me is just not quite enough. But plenty of people do still like it, and it lets you play the cast on crit with a moderate amount of damage. It's not fantastic. Path of Building gives us 5.2 mil single target on Sirus, which I think is pretty accurate considering how quick I was watching stuff die. But yeah, that is this is quite off meta. We've gone quite a bit further away from meta builds. So when you go that far away, that is what you get. You get lower DPS numbers, but I don't think 5 is that bad, so I'm still pretty happy with it. All right, I'll have the Path of Building and the link to the Sirus in the description below, and I will see everybody next time.